right?
Hey everybody, we got our favorite man about town,
Hi, everybody.
Andre, and he just told me some stuff he was going to look at. You guys will be happy. Actually, let's start off with your good stuff first.
Yeah, well, so I had looked at the Brazil uh, election actually quite a while back, and even then I thought, wow, this is strange because Bolsonaro's chart is really complicated right now, but Lula's is really good. So I remember thinking this guy's going to beat him, and now he already got through the first round, but now he's got to go to a second round. They go at the end of the month, and the interesting thing is, at the end of the month, it's even better for Lula because the Jupiter cycle, Jupiter has been in Aries since May, and it's going to backtrack for a couple of months. It's backtracking into Pisces, and that's a really sweet spot for Lula, right in his MC. So I think he's going to win. Now, it'll probably be pretty choppy because Bolsonaro is like Trump, and he's already saying, if I don't win by at least 60-40, then it's rigged. He's talking like that. But I would be very surprised if anything other than a loss, because his chart is very. He's got a problem. He's got this cross of planets, and Saturn and Uranus are in there. Not a good thing. So this would be score points for the reasonable, normal people, because Lula, whatever people can say about him, he's just a normal politician,
Yeah,
center left. Now he's a little more center right or center center, but the other guy's wacko.
wacko.
Bolsonaro is dangerous, and he plays the same game as Trump. Same thing.
Okay.
He didn't do. He thought COVID was fake. All that stuff. So I think that's good news. The Putin thing, it's a pretty scary thing because he's like a cornered animal, and and he doesn't have many options, including that, as I'm sure people know, people are leaving the country right and left because they don't want to fight wars. Like this guy seems to think he's in 1930. Information gets around too much now, and people aren't just going to go and join and get themselves killed for some idea you have, because no one is invading Russia. He keeps saying we got to protect Russia. From what? Nobody wants to invade Russia. Who wants anything in Russia? There's
Yeah.
nothing. No. So it's because he's invaded Ukraine. It's the usual thing. They flip it around to pretend like it's the other way. So, but Putin, the thing with him is his chart is really misaligned, and yes, it's more like the way I look at this now is it's just choppy, probably until the spring or something, where he's making noise and so forth, and there are threats. But I mean, my sense is that this nuclear thing is just a lot of empty talk
I mean,
because
I would be honest and say if I see, but I see him desperate. And like you said, a caged animal. But
yeah, like a caged animal, and if anything, I mean, you had said you're one of the first to say. I remember it was late 21, and people were saying, "Oh, is it going to happen?" You were saying, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, this guy's gonna go in," but you saw him running and like,
yeah, oh yeah, I saw then him hitting Ukraine and it was awful. I saw children dying. I saw all of it. But I
right, but
never saw a nuke
you never saw a nuke. But you did see him like when
threatening.
you said running, like where is he running to? Is he running for the hills?
Run! Run, Putin, run!
Right. I mean, the thing is, the only thing that counters that, the news that are out there is that apparently in Russia, the people that are really mad at him are even more hawkish. They want him to do more militarily, but militarily, what do you do?
He doesn't
It's
have a military.
no, he doesn't have a
These poor kids
military.
are going over there. They tell them, bring your own suitcase, bring some tampons to put in a bullet hole and
Yeah,
a
and so
bullet
so
bug.
the only thing is that if the replacement, if he's moved out and the replacement is just as hawkish, I don't know how you negotiate with someone like that. Like basically, Russia has to come around to the idea that they're not supposed to be taking people's territory. That's not allowed, right?
No.
So, and the thing is with Putin, his chart is so misaligned. I'm actually surprised that he hasn't gone down yet on a health problem because he's got a lot of health angles, and they get worse when you get into 2023 in the spring, because that switch of Saturn into the next sign, that sign is totally misaligned for it makes health more complicated, especially if you
Well,
already have a problem, which I
right,
believe he
but
does.
I keep getting a flash of a movie when I look at Putin. Do you remember Frankenstein, that funny one that with Cloris Leachman and
I
Frankenstein? No, it's not Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein.
I think so. The one I'm remembering, I thought it was Gene Wilder. Was that the same
Gene
one?
Wilder.
Right.
Cloris Leachman played Free Fry Fran something anyway,
Yeah,
and
I
the
remember
horses
that. That
would
was
go oh, the horses would every
that
time he
was so
cried.
funny. Wasn't that the one where the Marty Feldman had put in the wrong brain, and he said to him, because he goes, who is this? Who did this? And he said it was Abby somebody. And he goes, Abby normal. and then and then Gene Wilder goes, oh, it's abnormal. It's abnormal. I
I
remember
love
that.
that movie. But the
Yeah.
part where the all the villagers were coming with the pitchforks and they were coming to the castle,
Right.
that's what I see with Putin. So that means that people will turn against him and use
Yeah.
everything they have to stop him because
Yeah.
they
Well,
don't want to die and they don't want to send their children to die.
yeah. That to me, I mean, there's any astrologer would have told them, if you do this, I don't see how this ends. This doesn't look right to me. There's no, like, the irony is this guy reached this peak, like where the chart was really rocking when Trump came into power, which was great because then Trump was, say, oh, Putin, this and that. But he missed his chance. And if he was going to do something like that, if he does it during those years, Trump would have done nothing. Nothing. If he had gone into Ukraine, Trump would have said,
Yeah,
NATO's not going to
that's their
help you.
business. Yeah, we're not getting involved.
Right.
Right.
So he totally missed his chance. And now, especially if it's true that his health is declining, then it's even worse. And some people say things like, well, his health is declining, so then he won't care about launching a nuke. Yeah, but I mean, I almost
But
get
the
the feeling
people
that if he,
around him care.
yeah, exactly. Like I almost get the feeling that if he send the nuke, then they would disobey him maybe. And
I feel like that. And I also
yeah,
feel that there's a bunch of UFOs being seen over there. I think they'll stop it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Okay, so we did Putin. And people are asking about October and November, the aspects. They hear it's supposed to be a pretty rough time. And by
well,
the way, the January 6th Commission, which airs on Thursday next week, they said they have a lot of new stuff to
oh, I bet.
present.
Well, I mean, can you believe that? Can you
We need
believe
our
that now they're
popcorn.
saying, now they're saying that uh, Trump has more records? It's
Oh,
unbelievable.
yes,
I
of
mean,
course he does. We might as well kiss all that goodbye. We're going to have to change the whole format. They were talking about even 2 years ago, the intel out on the field was disappearing and they
yeah,
didn't know what was going on. And someone said, we have a mole. There's somebody releasing this information. And now they're looking at Jared and Ivana too about some stuff.
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing is, this whole that whole family, and he's the leader, but they're just so corrupt. I mean, it's unbelievable. They think everything to them is a crime, and they think like, well, everybody's doing this. No, everybody's not doing this. You're doing this. It's crazy, and so it's always like whatever you think of him, it's worse than that in the end, right? Who would have thought? Were you thinking like 6 months ago? Oh, he's gonna take he took all the SCI records and put them in Mar-a-Lago. I wasn't thinking that,
And,
but with him,
and
it's
acts like
possible.
it belongs to him.
Yeah, no, and the thing with him is, I know that it's hard for people because they keep saying he should be arrested, he should be in handcuffs, he should be this and that. First of all, just look at any legal case. They move really slow. This is the way the legal system is, and he always takes everything to the very end. Like he's got the case in the 11th Circuit. He took it up to the Supreme Court, and then there's that thing with, you know, Clarence Thomas is the one that is supposed to rule on it. I doubt that he's going to get anywhere there because even if Thomas got the bright idea that he was going to agree with him, then it goes before the full court, and I don't see it at all. So, but the point is, Trump, anything that happens will go always to the end, which means things get pushed down the road, right? But Trump is already in a bad situation, obviously, because you can tell. And the Saturn entry into Pisces in March of next year is not good at all. Then he goes into a 3-year period where it's moving in on him deeper and deeper and more problematic. So, and Saturn is the one that always calls you to account, right?
Right.
Brings forth, which leads me into this other guy who's experiencing this in real time, is Herschel Walker. He's got a Saturn and Uranus right in the sky, the square. That's he's got all these Aquarius planets. Now, I'm not saying obviously that every Aquarius is experiencing the same thing, because not every Aquarius is a liar and a, like the stuff he's done. He's having children everywhere, and then he's saying that he didn't have them, but then the next day he says he did, and that really doesn't matter. Anyways, Saturn comes in and calls you to account. It just says, well, you did this. So now, you got
You're
to
gonna pay.
face up to
Yeah.
it, right? And so even though apparently Republicans will vote for him anyway, but it's close. Like all these elections, the problem that the country's in is you can see this. Every election is tight, right? Everything is 10,000 votes out of like 6 million. So
Right.
you feel like you're watching a sporting event, and maybe you're going to win by a few points, but you're not going to win big. So it scares people, and I totally get it. But I think Walker is
I definitely didn't pick him winning.
no. Well,
But
so
did you see that other woman? Was it some woman? The way she looked in that camera, she said, "Listen, I don't care if he killed a bunch of endangered eagles. We need him in the Senate."
like a Republican woman.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, well, that's the thing. It's very tribal, and like someone said too, that a few years ago they were talking about. Well, in a way, they already voted for the guy, Roy Moore. He was sleeping with 14-year-olds, but it said 92% of Republicans voted for him. So they don't seem to care about that, because they look at it as he's like another Senate seat. So we're not gonna turn against our own guy. But even so, when you've got this kind of news swirling about you, you'll lose a few votes. Maybe not many, but just enough. Like, look what happened in 2020. The Senate was won by Warnock and Ossoff pretty tight. I mean, those were not big wins. What happened was that I think the voters were a little demoralized because Trump had lost. And then Trump was telling them, it doesn't matter, voting
don't
is all
vote.
rigged.
Yeah,
Right. So then they lost a few. They still got millions, though, were voting for the other two. So that's what you'll see here. And everywhere, like, people get upset because they'll say, well, so and so in Pennsylvania had a big lead, but now it's tightened. Because once you get near the election, all the Republicans come home and they vote for their guy, most of them, right? But first of all, they don't have enough. And secondly, they lose a few on account of the independents. Will say, well, I'm not going to vote for this guy. Like, look at Herschel Walker. The man looks like he's been hit in the head too many times. And he doesn't
yeah.
even look that sharp to begin with. He answers
It's really
questions.
sad, and he lies while breathing. It's so
Holy
sad.
smoke. I mean,
But then the
incoherent.
Republicans voted for Trump, and he lied all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, when you can say that a person is less coherent than Trump, scary thought, because he's having trouble, saying three sentences in a row without the third sentence contradicting the first sentence. I mean, really bad, right?
Well,
So
and I never saw him winning, and I also feel that I feel Herschel Walker is definitely going to win. But what the
no,
biggest thing,
you
the
mean
thing that's not, is it, wait, isn't he
you mean
running against, who's he
no,
running?
you mean Raphael Warnock.
Raphael, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Right.
He's the most important thing is the abortion. The young
Yeah,
people will come out like ants and vote
correct.
the
And,
one that says that's between a woman and her doctor.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's like, separately, like, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but I keep repeating this to people because it's that planet that relates to the rise of women, and it's in this orbit where it's moving really, really slow. So wherever it lands in your chart, often it does nothing. But if it catches something, you either have a big help or a big problem. And Trump has a big problem because it's never going to let him go. And this is why all these women, look at all the women, judges, prosecutors, they're all moving in on him. And this is another example of women now enraged, like as a group, because the Supreme Court did something that I think is crazy, both in an election year and overall. It's not a winner, it's a loser, you
And
know?
he even put out there, now perhaps we'll look at gay marriage next. Perhaps we'll. Can
Yeah,
you
perhaps.
believe Thomas had the nerve to say that?
Yeah, well, Thomas is probably I would say it's a tie between him and Alito for who's the worst in that court. The next worst is probably Kavanaugh, and then maybe Gorsuch, and then maybe Amy Coney Barrett, and Roberts. I think is the most sensible of that group,
Right.
but it's kind of that order, right? And so
Have you looked at Thomas and
Thomas chart, you can see that he's dealing. Remember, he had a health issue.
yes.
It's still there, and what I notice is that, and you probably can vouch for this, when your health suffers, your world can get really narrow and you can make big mistakes and things don't progress as well. You have to be unbelievably, I don't know, what's the word, is gifted, lucky. And the thing is, I think almost like health and luck go together. It's really important to have your body in a good place. And it's threatened at the moment, right? So this, like at minimum, leads to mistakes, because I think he's made a few. That thing that he did where he dissented on his wife's case, or no, he dissented on the records, which made it look like he was helping Trump. I mean, because it made no sense, right? He was the
Yeah.
only judge, and people immediately said, "Well, why didn't you just go along with the rest, and it wouldn't have revealed who you are?" But he made that mistake, so it hasn't cleared yet, and he's at risk. Let's just say that's what I would say about Thomas.
And Ginny Thomas said, "I truly believe that the vote was, yeah."
Well, I'm curious if maybe it would have leaked already. I don't know, but I'm curious when they do the meeting. You said next week on Thursday,
Yes.
whether they got something from her that is valuable, or they just got, whether they'll air it so we can all see, right? Because
I definitely saw that. I saw them bringing up Ginny Thomas, and I saw them even talking about some things she was in on. And maybe she didn't answer them on it, or
well,
her comment was blah, blah, blah.
yeah, well, her chart, she's under pressure. Like whenever a chart is under pressure, the logic is that you don't want to. It's kind of like saying to people, look, if you're on a Saturn transit, it's more difficult. Fine, but if you tell me that you're on a Saturn transit and then you say, oh, and by the way, I'm being investigated by the FBI, then I think, okay, this is bad. This is not good, because it just isn't good. Kind of like the same with Warnock, apparently, or with Herschel Walker. Apparently, his campaign knew that there were these problems, and an astrologer would have said, well, I can guarantee you they're going to come up, because that Saturn is moving in there. You get to October, boom, they're going to throw them at you. So, are you ready? They were saying, oh, they probably won't come up. Yeah, they do come up. So that's the logic. And Ginny Thomas,
And his son turning on him like that too.
the which?
His son turning on him like
Oh yeah, I mean the Sun. The only thing the Sun hasn't done, which I wish he would do, because he
Right.
went pretty clear, said it in a, you saw the video, right? He should say, the way to really nail this guy, she should say, hey, by the way, I am a right-wing conservative, okay? I'm on your team, and this guy is not the right person for this job, okay? That's the logic. But of course, maybe he won't do that. But that's what he should do if you were honest, because the Sun is not a liberal. He's
No,
not.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
He has a very
looks like
popular show, and he's a right-wing
he's a
conservative.
right wing, so he sounds like a liberal, but he's not. But if he actually went that far and said, hey, just to make things really clear here, I hope Republicans win, but I think my father is not the right person, because my father's a liar and a cheat and all that other stuff. And it's not even that. He doesn't look like someone who can think his way through the problems that you would face in the Senate. You got to have a minimum.
He would be a
Jesus,
puppet.
like what?
They would tell him what to do.
This is the most frustrating part of the period we're in, is how many, the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Boberts. I mean, how do they even get in there? Because they gerrymander everything, and they get really incompetent people, who think Jewish space lasers, and who think the Constitution should be, church and state should be together. That's what Bobert said, that the Constitution says church. They explicitly say not to do that, right?
No.
It says that. So,
Colbert said, I am so sick and tired of hearing about separation of church and state.
I know. I am so sick and tired of hearing you there, Lauren, honestly. If
So
only they
back
made,
to October, November, the general transits. Are you seeing anything that stands out?
yeah. Okay, so basically October, more than November. October up to the beginning of November is tense, because you've got two planetary stations, which, by the way, they've been doing this pretty regularly. Like last year, do you remember last year there was that whole, like one of the examples, that Gabby Petito thing where she
Yes.
died, and there was that as part of the station. The stations around that time are difficult, but this year they're extra difficult. Pluto and Saturn, the two most difficult energies, are stationing. Pluto is stationing like right now, basically,
I can
and
feel
Saturn,
it. I can
which,
feel it.
by the way, there's the clue. Pluto rules nuclear power, and what have we been hearing? There's like the threat. Maybe he'll do this, and so forth. So it puts that thought in people's minds. Saturn is just plain challenging energy, moving in toward the end of the month, right?
Uh,
But when people say, okay, well, there's an eclipse, yeah, there's an eclipse, there are stations, but always ask yourself, who's going to be unhappy? There are going to be many unhappy people. If it's an election, one side is going to be more happy than the other, obviously, right? So my feeling is that when you look at November, this is what I've said since last year. November is very good to Biden. And I have to ask, why is Biden so happy in November? Just tell me that. It makes zero sense. If they lose the House even, it's a big problem going into next year.
they'll
Because
start
then,
impeaching everybody.
oh, it'll just, well, or even calling Merrick Garland in to declare and this. I mean, it'll just be a noise machine. So the November period, very good for Biden. And then if you look further ahead, because with astrology, you're always looking, okay, where's this thing headed? The energy next year in Pisces, Saturn, which will 3 years, it'll be there. It's kind of suspicious that Scorpios like Garland and Biden benefit from that because then it goes into a trine, right? So how does that match, the notion that, can you imagine what's going to happen? If not, you'll be faced with more pressure, not less pressure, right?
Right.
So now, all this said, I still say to people, you got to vote and get whoever you can. The voting is power. It's that simple. That's what a democracy is. It's
Right.
plain like that. And I agree with you. Totally agree that the determining thing is I bet you when they do the numbers, they're going to say what made the difference was women came out.
With women.
Yeah,
A
precisely.
while back, and I'm sure you watched me because you know some of the stuff I did in 2021. I said everybody was saying it's going to go to the Republicans. It's just the way it is. It's tradition. And a Democratic president, it's going to turn around. And they were all the Republican McCarthy and all, and McConnell, they were grunting and groaning, couldn't wait till they got their turn. And I thought, I would have thought, yeah, okay, that's the way it goes. And then my guide showed me ants pushing through, making their own bridges. You know how ants are, they're determined. And now with everything that's happened, I realized what they were saying. The women are like ants, and men too, that don't want someone telling them how to do their family planning. They're
Right.
going in and they're going to take over. It's the women, I'm telling you, and menses, but smart women and menses.
Yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, that's my sense of it too. And I mean, does this mean though that we can say this? And does this mean that people immediately relax completely? No. I mean, it's a very tense
Don't
situation.
relax.
It's a
No,
tense
you gotta go
situation.
out.
Like basically, this is a little bit like watching a sport thing that you're really into, where your team is better, but it's not that much better. It's just better enough, and you're sweating through it to get a result. It's not like a wipeout, which if it were, it would help, but it's unlikely. So and by the way, I'm pretty sure. What are the odds that you get a win and then nobody complains on the Republican side? They're low. They're going to complain because they always complain. So it's probably going to be a
Always.
little dicey, right?
Always.
Yeah.
And then they'll, like they told us when Trump won, get over it.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, that
So,
even though the situation is tense, my advice is just relax in terms of just wait it out, and and I think November much better than
yeah.
October, by the way. So
But,
there's that.
the Republicans are really thinking that the Democrats are picking on them. Like we're picking on their president. They're not looking at the fact that he was a criminal. They just think that we're out to create all this havoc. But they do the same thing. Look at Kevin Starr with President Clinton.
Oh yeah, no, it's politics is a dirty game, but they've made it I think since Obama, I started to see this a lot in 2010 when the Tea Party came in.
Yeah.
I started to notice that I used to watch Ted Cruz like the first year, and I used to think, "What are you? You're a total liar." He would say something, and I would say, "That's not what happened. You just made it up."
Oh my
So they kind of lost their bearings and went all in on made up stuff and everything. So and then Trump came in, and Trump is the master at that. He has zero belief in anything honest.
And he listened to Putin.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So until it's a bit like a virus or it's like the Republican Party has caught the disinformation COVID or whatever until you purge it. But my feeling is that's going to take at least a couple of election cycles. I don't know what you see, but it should take
Oh yeah.
this election cycle, maybe the next one too, because there is that too. The American chart has the signature of the 1860s. It's just that this time it's not quite as dangerous to my understanding because back in the 1860s there were two planets really close together, and now the same two planets are a little further apart, and that really helps in spreading out the problem and making it like a little longer but less bloody, because the 1860s were brutal.
Yeah, because people are worried about a civil war, and I don't see that. I see little pockets of terrorists, and the FBI is really keeping up with it.
Yeah, and I mean because part of it is that back in the 1860s you could fund an army, and you had the South had resources. But what do you do now? I mean, these guys. By the way, they're all in court. Did you hear that the Proud Boys are pleading?
Yeah.
That can't be good, right?
Well, and the other thing is they're disappointed with Trump. Trump did not give them a flat pardon like he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
Oh,
Disappointed
now
with-
he's saying if I'm president again, I'll pardon him, but he's promised that back then, so they don't believe him.
I know. Disappointed with Trump. That's, I think, the mantra of the current era, right? Disappointed with Trump. What do you think you're going to get from Trump? Honestly, I mean, ask Rudy. I bet you Rudy is losing his marbles.
Oh, I heard. This is rumor only. That there's some sort of putting him in jail in a minute, putting Rudy in jail.
You heard? You mean? Are you talking about
Somebody on Twitter, somebody in the business said they're about ready to put Rudy in jail.
Well, he's in the middle. Rudy really pushed it. He's in the middle of the fake electors thing. So he was doing the say one thing in public, say another in court, and he mostly stuck to it. But once you start getting involved in promoting fake documents and stuff like that, now you're breaking the law. So yeah, and by the way, his chart is another one of those charts where there's a lot of pressure, and he would be the one to tell you, yeah, they're investigating me. I might lose
Right.
my license, and I would say, yeah, I think you might, because same like with that crazy woman, the Kraken lady. She's another one that.
Oh my God. And she didn't show up for court. Neither did Rudy. Maybe that's why they have a petition for them to go to jail.
Yeah, maybe, but this is the thing. The thing is, what the most encouraging part of this whole thing to me is that the rule of law is still pretty strong in this country. Because you
Yes.
saw, like, look what happened with the 11th Circuit. It's a conservative circuit, and they basically laughed at Judge Cannon. They kind of said to her, "Hey, come on, you can't do this, right?" And then now she did another thing, and it's back to them again. The point is, those were Trump judges who said, "No, we're not gonna do this," right? So
But she's not a judge, really. She's not very good at all. People
no,
are asking when's she going to get her just desserts. I don't know about being expelled, but I do see she'll be sort of a laughing stock.
well, she's another case of, like, she's a Scorpio with the sun at 25 degrees. So when you have the sun at 25 degrees, between June of this year and next March, the counsel is don't do anything outside the bounds, because if you do, it'll bounce back
It'll
on you.
bounce right
Well, what
back
did she
on
go and do? She stuck her neck in there and did things that are crazy. So now her January is like this because Saturn is in there in the context of what she did, right? She walked
Right.
into it. I mean, you don't, if you have your sun at 25 Scorpio, you don't have to be thinking, oh, that's going to happen to me. No, you just got to look around to what you did. It still challenges you, but it doesn't have to be like a total mockery, the whole
Right.
country laughing at you and your reputation in tatters. So
Right,
that's
exactly.
the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and that Jenny Thomas, everybody wants her to get her just desserts. I do see something coming up for her.
Well, hers is another one that's under pressure. I don't have a time though. I only have the day, but same with Eileen Cannon. There are quite a few of these charts. I gotta go on, without the total factor, all the points. But even if you just see like Herschel Walker as an example, no time, but there's so many Aquarius planets and Saturn, Uranus are in the middle of it. You immediately notice it looks too suspicious that the moment is really bad. Same with Thomas and Cannon. They're not on the right side of things. They're getting pressure that gets extended. Same like with people like what's his face, Lindsey Graham. He's another one that.
Oh yeah, we haven't heard anything from him lately.
Yeah, because in the background they're working him because he's got pressure planets and because he did something. He just did, right? By the way, the other thing here is that this election is so important because it is going to progress faster if the House and Senate stay Democratic. If they lose even one of them, it's going to slow it down more for sure. It's going to.
Yeah, but how could Biden have such a good chart if it's
correct? How could he? Yeah, you make a great. You're making my case. I know.
I had a friend tell me.
Like if you asked me if I'm Biden and you asked me what astrology do you want, I'd say I want that, and then the person would say, but that's November. Perfect.
Oh, really? That good?
Yeah. It's really November, where Jupiter is placed. It's sort of the classic, like when a person experiences that in their life, at any point in their life, a Jupiter trine in a station, because Jupiter moves pretty quick. Like if you look at the ephemeris, the columns, it's moving. So then you feel it for maybe a week, 10 days, you get a really nice feeling. But here, the whole month takes on that, more like almost 5 weeks. It's in there constantly radiating a lot of good energy. So that's perfect for an election thing, right? Because it's in that range. It's in November, right?
And then he promised, you give me the house and everything and I'll codify Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, they can scream all they like, but the part of the thing is, with politics is, when you go against the majority, man, that's just not a good plan, And I think Republicans didn't want to do it this way. The court, how they say that joke that, how does it go, that the dog caught the car? Because they said they wanted to keep it as a topic that they could throw out there, we're pro-life and Democrats are, this and that. But they didn't want Roe v. Wade thrown out because they knew that if the polls said 2/3 of the country want it, keep it, right? So doing that, I think, damaged them politically. And so if Biden, even if he did it like by, say that they get a couple more seats and they kill the filibuster just for like a carve out to say we're going to codify Roe v. Wade, they'll scream, they'll say, well, we'll bring it back. They won't bring it back. There's no way because it's too unpopular. And now they may not. Now, I said 2 to 5 years.
If they lose, they wouldn't bring it back.
No, then they can't, right? But to me, this is like, remember we were talking in some prior one where the look to me of this whole Roe v. Wade was that the longest I saw was 5 years, but as little as a couple of years, which would fit, in the next period, like between this election and the next election, as when that could be fixed, right? Or, I mean, I don't see how it wouldn't be, how it wouldn't be codified. But either way, I think with Biden and as president, he's not going to let, the thing get too far out there the way Republicans are trying to do it. And it's a crazy, I mean, what they're thinking is nuts. This thing with incest and rape. And I mean, what are they doing? It's like they've gone insane, to say that to women. It's so confronting and so evil. Because a lot of it, as I'm sure you know, it's just like a health protection thing, because now apparently some women are even in danger just from not even so much the idea that they don't want to have a baby, but that they can't because they could die, right? And a doctor may not.
They're making them stop in midstream, that people have dead fetuses inside of them.
Right.
It's so sad. It'll change. This too shall pass. My guides told me they've woken the sleeping giant. This was what's going to hand us the midterms.
Yeah.
That's what my guide said. So
well,
we'll see.
I mean, isn't it curious that there was this incredible shift in direction around the middle of the year? Biden passed this legislation. It followed on the heels of the Roe v. Wade. Like, in other words, I started to notice that all the news said the numbers have flipped. Now it looks like a dead heat, or Democrats have a little bit of advantage. So that happened this year, but not earlier in the year. It looked pretty grim. It looked like it was going to go the usual way. It
Yeah,
does
yeah,
in
and then start
these
changing.
elections. Yeah,
I love it.
exactly.
So, but the last question on the economic end, we were going to talk about that.
Oh yeah. So the thing with the economic is that my sense is not a crash like 2008 or like 1929 or whatever, nothing like that, but more like a flat period, because that's partly that Saturn Uranus square that is causing so many problems for people like Herschel Walker. Or, by the way, it was already operating in early 2021, but in 2021 they were flooding a lot of printed money was being flooded, so that was keeping the market going. But then at a certain point, it went down. And normally, Saturn Uranus, when I look back, they're low periods. The market, in fact, 2008 was like that, right? Because there were other factors, whatever. So we're on a low period, and it could extend a bit into next year. But I don't see, like this big, dropout and then everything dropping. Like in 2008, it went down to like half. I mean, it just completely lost most of the, like half, or some big amount. I don't see that. I think it's just a temporary.
And then it's weird. It goes down, then it goes up, then it goes down.
Yeah, but it's more the danger if the in 2008 there were things underneath, the economy that were ready to blow up in a negative way. Those mortgages that were being manipulated. Now, if anything, the problem now is that the Fed is raising interest rates to cool the economy off so that the inflation won't go up, because inflation is very threatening. But when you do that, you will get a little more unemployment, and you'll get more like a slowdown, not as fast as it's been, but I don't think enough. Not enough to.
Not enough to crash us.
No, I don't see that. No, I mean, if anything, I mean, at the moment, the U.S. the most dangerous part for the U.S. is that the U.S. has a big debt. I mean, that part is pretty. I don't know if you saw that report, $31 trillion. Holy.
Yeah,
Lord.
I thought Biden brought it down from when Trump was in office.
No, Biden brought it up too big. But I mean, there are two different things: the deficit and the debt. Like, deficit is within a year, how like a short-term account thing, but the long-term account has been growing since, like, I don't know, since George W. Bush already. It was climbing, and it went
Because
up under
Clinton's the one who
Obama.
got us back in check, right?
Who?
President Clinton.
Yeah, for a while there it was helping, but Trump increased it a lot. Trump was
Yeah.
horrible. He added a ton of debt, and then Biden, in a way, was forced to, because of the pandemic. All that money adds to the debt, so that's a little dangerous. But as long as the dollar is strong, because the whole idea
The
is that,
dollar is strong.
yeah, you need the currency. A country gets in trouble when the currency gets in trouble. But notice that right now in the world, it's all based on your competitors, right? And China is in terrible shape.
Oh, yeah.
Because, China has, like, they're doing that zero COVID policy and all that stuff, and their economy is really
Tanking.
slowed down. And Russia, I mean,
Oh,
are you
forget
kidding
about
me?
it.
No, Russia is they're going to run out of money. And the people that say things like, for instance, that woman that got elected, Meloni in Italy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Italy doesn't have enough power to upset, to do anything. I mean, they can argue among themselves, but
Yeah.
it's not like just because she's there that you're going to spread fascism throughout Europe or anything.
No,
So,
she's not going to last very long.
no, well, yeah, that's another thing, that in Italy the governments last
Well,
anywhere from.
actually, I have one more last question.
Oh,
I
cool.
got a hit on Elon Musk
Oh,
with
did you? Him,
Twitter.
I didn't even look at. What did you get?
I got a hit that it looks like he'll be forced to buy Twitter. But even if he gets Twitter, like right now, he's having trouble coming up the money because people backed out. I feel a crash and burn. I don't know what that's about. Is it that he destroys Twitter, or
So what kind of a crash and burn? Like for
like
himself?
for Twitter and him? I feel Twitter going downhill too.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me one bit, because I read that as a kind of a trend that I've seen many times in these public figures. When they step outside their lane, which is another, this is another Saturn, the council of Saturn, and I'm remembering now, he's a Gemini.
Yeah.
So his problem is that Saturn going into Pisces is not favorable, given that he's having trouble staying in his lane. It's not really his lane. He thinks that because he's made a lot of money, now he's going to turn into, Murdoch, number two.
Oh
Mr.
yeah, he was
Communication.
giving advice to Zelensky on what lands to give to Russia and all. I'm like, who the hell
Exactly,
is
like
this guy?
stuff that he's way outside his lane, and when that happens, people make more mistakes. And already, I think he realized that Twitter is way too expensive, and he wanted to back out. So I'm surprised to hear. Well, if he does buy it, good luck to him. But it doesn't even make any money. I don't even know what that plan is about. To tell you the truth,
I just feel it crash and burn. That's what I saw.
and if he goes in there and people start leaving Twitter even more, then that's not going to look good. And in any case, yeah, the Saturn going into it, it's for a person who is crossing through boundaries they shouldn't. It's not a good thing, right? He goes into years of difficulty as a result. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if that happened. Yeah,
Well, my friend, it was lovely. So I'll be on your show next, right?
as usual. Yeah. I look forward to that. It's always when you come on, it's always a lot of fun because we cover the latest and it's
Well, this one was fun.
yeah, totally. No, I know
Yeah,
absolutely.
cool. And I had real good time in New York, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was excellent. I was nervous about it and a little fearful of it, and I shouldn't go do that. Ended up being fantastic.
Excellent. Are you planning any more trips or are you staying put for a while?
Right now, I'm staying put.
You staying
You
put.
know, I have those implants that can cause cancer. Okay, very minute chance.
Oh,
And I was on the waiting list to get them replaced with my doctor. And finally, I contacted them and I said, well, what's going on? It's been over a year. And they said, well, we thought you wanted the tummy tuck too, so it's cosmetic. And I said, well, no, I can go without the tummy tuck because I didn't lose that weight I was planning on losing. So I just want to get the breast done because it's cancer causing, and I'll be under long enough with the breast. And so I talked to my plastic surgeon, and so they're going to get that on board. So I'll talk to you later, but I may be having surgery, within the next couple of months. And it's easy recovery for that.
well, I'll definitely take a look at that. To
Yeah,
see.
take a look. But I think I'll be fine. The tummy tuck, I was nervous because I would be under for a long time.
Right.
And my mom didn't do good with being under for a long time. She didn't come out the same. So,
Right.
all right.
All right.
Okay,
Sounds
my
great.
friend. So I shall talk to you later.
Yeah.
And bye, you guys. Thank you for everything. Thank you for showing
Bye,
up.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.